All right. Got it. Record. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this Mending the Hoop Council with our special guest, Chief Kenny Frost. And I also want to welcome Janet Gray to our council circle. Chief Kenny, welcome. I'd like to ask you if you would unmute yourself. And if you would be so kind as to do the opening prayer and song. I know you're driving right now.
Yeah. Yan monum. Tuaya panikri tusmoy. Yana momchu tuachu. Tuaya. Creator, thank you for this day you have given us. Thank you for all of us to be here at this time. We ask that you guide us in a good way. The words that we speak are good words, and that all things that are said for our people will always be there. We say this as humble as we can. We say this in a good way. So, thank you.
Thank you. It's really an honor to have you here, Chief Kenny. And I wanted actually in this program to give you an opportunity to speak to the people that which you feel needs to be spoken at this time. And I also, when we spoke the other day, we spoke, did some remembrances of Chief Leonard Crowdog. And I would just ask you if you would, also speak on that. But
sure. Many of our chiefs, our medicine people, have left us. Great many of them have left us prior to COVID, before we found out what COVID was. Many of our medicine and spiritual leaders were there. According to their traditional teachings, when people come to them for help, they offer their services to help heal our people. It wasn't until later when it was found out that COVID was a silent killer. Many of those who have crossed over have left us, and now it is up to us, those who are still here, to continue the work of our medicine men and medicine women, just as we're taught with the gifts, given those gifts from Creator. We also partake and we think about the great medicine man, Leonard Crowdog, medicine man of the Lakota Nation. And when I talked to him prior to him being sick in 2016 at Standing Rock, he felt his time was coming to an end, and he was ready to make the journey. However, I was teasing Leonard and telling him, well, we could fix that to keep him here a little bit longer. And he didn't like that too much. He said it was time for him to go, and it was time for the new generation of healers, of men and women, to continue to work. But to continue to work to help our people always in the humbling manner. The sad part that Leonard says, as we spoke, he stated, Our native people, regardless of what tribal nation we come from, and I'm in agreement with what he said, our native people can be the most vicious people around. Long ago, the invaders came to this land. We told our young native people, never believe everything you read about our native people in black and white. Crow Dog stated, now we can't really believe anything that's written on the internet because it's easy to read those false words and believe what's written, which is true. I have seen the internet transform, destroy, and hurt many, many people. And many times those things are not factual. And that was something that Crow Dog had always said. But as he stated, when I went to Crow Dog's paradise this year, I didn't make it last year because I was going through surgery with my eyes. Um, and this year I did. His son, Junebug, Crow Dog Jr., was leading the Sundance, led the Sundance of dancers. Many of the stories that we hear about paradise is always inaccurate. Once again, that goes back to what we hear and what gossip can do. But it was actually run good. It was a powerful ceremony, just as Crow Dog had always kept it as pure, as strong. There are times that, as medicine people, we may not believe with what decisions are made at the time with our native leadership. That is why there is always a chief's council to listen to all sides, to try to make the right decisions, to do what is right for the people. The same thing held true at Paradise when Crow Dog was there. Many ceremonies were conducted. Many people questioned those same ceremonies, yet those ceremonies which Crow Dog took part in helped heal our people, helped heal those who came to him for help. So this year, when I went to Paradise, many people told me, Crow Dog is gone. The power is gone. I would tell the people, no, the power is here within our sacred ceremonies, our lodges, our longhouses, our sweats, our teepee ceremonies. That's where the power is at, where Creator comes and helps our people. The people who run and conduct these ceremonies are instruments of the Creator. We are just there to be a conduit to ensure that those ceremonies are run as best they can be run and conducted in a manner to help our people. So as I spoke with Junebug, he said he wanted help. It was the second day of the Sundance. He told me the same thing, which I just said. Many believe that his dad was gone, the power was gone. He gave me full reign of the ceremony of the lodge. He said, do what you must do when you doctor me and help me. The dancers are at your disposal, the chiefs, the sub chiefs, and the women are lined up and will come in as a medicine wheel formation. After saying a prayer to the Creator within and close vicinity of the center pole, I raised my hand to the east and asked the spirits to come from the easterly direction. but not like a breeze, but more of a strong wind as I did that to the south, the west, the north. Each time the breeze was stronger. And then in the middle, using my fan, making a circular motion where there was a whirlwind above the dancers by the center pole. What was the purpose of this? You might ask or wonder. The purpose of this was to show the people that the power exists within our sacred lodges. That is where the power is. Like myself and my brother Crow Dog, we were just instruments to help heal, to help our people. But at the same time, it was to show the people that the power has never left. And the very last conversation I had with Crow Dog, he stated, when I come back, I'm going to come back as lightning, rain, and thunder. That night of that ceremony, it indeed lightened, lightning, thundered, and hailed and rained for over 3 hours. The lightning was so powerful, it was a 3 hour grand finale at a fireworks show with the booms from the thunder happening for over 3 hours. And it was there that Crow Dog had also mentioned what he would do to other people. So when that happened, the very next morning, going to the lodge, to the dancers, many people were speaking about Crow Dog's words. And as he said, he will come back as thunder, lightning. And he was there that night to let the people know that everything is okay, that he is okay, that the power and the dance must continue. It was a good, it was a good feeling. It was a warm feeling. Even his son, Junior, said, "Gee, Dad, that was pretty powerful. Now we know you're here." But after the dance continued the very next day to follow the power of the dancers from both the men and women dancing in unison, the strength of the drum, the songs came into play, that the power was there. And there was medicine people from Turtle Island, South America, Canada that were there who witnessed what happened. And they came around to me, sat with me, spoke with me, said that was powerful. That needed to happen. We needed, you needed to show the people that the power is here in our ceremonies. Just as we, the visiting healers, conduct their ceremonies, they also do that in their respective ceremonies. And they have to do that from time to time to show the people that our ceremonies are powerful. And that is something that no one can take away from us. That is something that no one can really say we can harness and grasp and utilize this medicine for ourselves. As that wasn't the intended need to utilize those medicines, those powers, the intended need was to help our people, regardless of who they are, regardless of who comes up for help. There is no discrimination in helping our people. I was taught at a very young age that if a person comes up and asks for help, for guidance, to help them. And that's what we did throughout the dance at Paradise to help. I've also seen other medicine people, other dances conduct those ceremonies in such a way that oftentimes modern doctors will ask a patient who is native, how did you overcome your sickness? How did you overcome the cancer? How did you overcome the ailments within your body? And our native people will always say, I gone back to our native traditions, our native teachings for healing. And the doctors will say, that is what we call a miracle. But we're going to watch you to make sure that whatever illness happens doesn't come back. There are many, many stories of many people being healed, being helped. Many of those people I've helped long ago, 25 years, 30 years. I seen them this past year while conducting burial ceremonies. And they come up and I'd be smiling at them and says, hey, you're looking good. And they said, yeah, I feel good. And I said, wow, you're doing good. And all they say is, thank you so much. And I tell them, you're welcome. But that is the power that our medicines have. And when I speak to people who are sick, who ask for help, I tell our people or groups of people, of our native people, that today, when a person becomes sick, what's the first thing you hear? You got to go see a doctor. Go get some pills. Go get your medicine. 250 years ago, our native people didn't have doctors. They had medicine people. They didn't say, go get a pill. They didn't say, go get a shot. They said, we'll work on you. We'll give you our herbs to help heal you so that you become well. Or this root, drink it. It will help you. We have medicines that we have forgotten. We have medicines for cancer, cirrhosis, diabetes, stomach ailments, headaches. The aspirin that we eat, that comes from the red willow plant that modern man has made to create modern day aspirin. That is our native medicine. The red willow is like a pain suppressant and takes care of the headaches. And that's where aspirins come from. Well, not our aspirin, but modern man's aspirin comes from our plants, our native plants. And other roots that we utilize, other medicines come from that. And it's those teachings that we have to remember to try to go back to them, to try to learn as much as we can from our healers, our medicine men and women. And that is something that Crow Dog has always said, even as in his last days being here, to continue on, to help one another. Try not to, use words that are harmful, hateful. I learned those things long ago in being young, where somebody got me mad. And I seen the outcome of that, which I didn't mean to say when I was very, very young. But when we're young, we say things which we don't mean sometimes that can be hurtful. Sadly, there are people out there who are older, middle age, and will say those things. And that's not good. That's not how our people used to be. Our people used to be more calmer. Listen, listen with reason. Sit quietly and take it in. Then formulate a idea or plan of what to do. That is who our native people are. We need to go back to that to help our people regardless of who they are, where they come from, what tribal nation they come from. We are only here for a brief moment of time, yet we are all related to one another. That's who we are. We are children of Mother Earth, and we have to remember those things. We have to remember those stories. We have to remember those oral traditions of our stories. We have to teach the next generation as best we can our languages, our culture, our customs. Because if we do not do that and we do not turn the tide, then we're going to lose that one piece at a time. I can understand you. I can speak a little bit, enough to get by if I have to. But when I was going to public school system, I spoke to another Ute Mountain boy when I was in second grade, I guess. We were talking Ute, and the teacher said, "You don't speak Ute in this classroom. Stick your hands up." She grabbed a big old yardstick, a thick yardstick, slapped our hands and told us, "We only speak English here." So I went home and told my grandmother, and she said, "Well, listen to what teacher says. Don't speak Ute no more." So as a young child, it leaves you baffled. Why you you want me to speak Ute here at home, but you don't want me to speak Ute at school? That was troubling, and it was something I wrestled with for a long time. But when I'm in Utah, I can understand the Ute people speaking Ute, and I feel comfortable amongst them. But since my mom passed away, there's no one home anymore who speaks Ute. So the saying goes, if you don't use your language, you end up losing it slowly. I remember when I did that burial ceremony in Utah for a relative, some of the elders said, "How do you say this word?" And some I remembered and some I didn't. And we were having Ute class at night during the wake. And we laughed and joked around and told stories and speaking in Ute. And it was good, it was refreshing. But I encourage each and every one of you to speak. Try to learn your language. Try to speak as best you can. No one is perfect. And that's how a creator intended us to be as two-legged people, to always have a little bit of flaw. The reason we have a little bit of flaw is because if we lived in a perfect world, we wouldn't have the problems we have today. We have to get along both with men, women, the little ones, and learn from one another. That's what life is all about. That's what our ancestors went through long ago. Our people lived in harmony with Mother Earth. And the reason I say that is even our pets who have four legs, man, long ago, we had the ability to communicate with our four-legged brothers and sisters. But man, somewhere down the road got greedy and Creator took away that gift of communication with our four-legged brothers and sisters. But we didn't lose it at all. We just have to expand on it to reawaken that teaching. Because if you have a pet, whether it's a cat or a dog, and you speak to your pet understands what you're saying. And even if you speak in your native tongue to your pet also understands. And when our pets talk to us, whether it's meowing or barking, we have an understanding of what our pet is trying to say. And that's neat when you really think about it. So
Well,
it's so
it
it's those
is.
little so it's the little things in life that we have to go back and cherish the understanding of what Creator had given us as people. Even for the younger generation, the little kids, they say the silliest things. There's also a teaching in that, and that's where we have to be awakened, to be open to what they have to say, because they also teach us the same. But that is something that I would always say and remind our people to always be open to one another, never to criticize. But we live in a world today where each and every day somebody says something hurtful and criticize because of that green monster that's been instilled in all of us of jealousy, that those things happen from time to time. We have to get rid of that so we can get along together. But that is something that I would tell our Native people and all people, that we do need to come together as one in order to make this a better place to live, to make it a happy home. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And to all our medicine people, those who have made the journey, we say special prayers for those families, their loved ones, because those people gave their lives to help our people. And we always have to remember their children, their grandchildren of those teachings. And we say prayers for them always. Oh,
Hi,
the way.
hi. Chief Kenny, what do you see going forward as the unfoldment of the mending of the hoop? And I know you've been very much involved in helping with the original people of Hawaii and around Turtle Island. How do you see this healing unfolding, and how can people be part of that in these changing times? What do you see as the way forward?
The mending of the hoop is a real thing. Um, Mr. Coas, who teaches the healing with alcoholism, Don Coas, has a hoop of over 100 eagle feathers on that hoop. It's called the Healing Hoop, which has traveled to every reservation reserve in Canada across Turtle Island. That healing has to help our people. It's there to heal our people, to make everybody have a better understanding that the poisons that we drink or partake that is not good for our body starts that healing, that we have to learn and go back to our traditional teachings and lessons. It is also the same thing with the people of Hawaii, that they have also undergone the troubles that we have gone, and they are going and experiencing the betterment of preserving, protecting their identity, their sacred places, their sacred lands as well. The same thing our Native people did in the 70s. That is what we need to do, is in order to heal, we have to open up ourselves, to be open, to help one another, to be there, to support our people. And that's where the healing and the mending of this from the sacred hoop starts.
Do you see I mean a restoration of original nation government? Do you see going ahead just as is with, band councils? And I mean, what are your thoughts on
As a Native American consultant helping tribal councils across Turtle Island, utilizing the federal laws, utilizing the lessons we learned from the 70s and fighting for the water, the air, the land, our people, the rights, civil rights of our Native people. There is a push to go back to our traditional ways. When the Indian Reorganization Act was created, that took away the councils across Turtle Island and created the tribal government based on the United States Constitution, which, by the way, was stolen from the Haudenosaunee people who created the Iroquois Council or Constitution that was taken and stolen by Benjamin Franklin and his cronies, pretty much verbatim. However, Europeans have used that idea and thought to benefit themselves rather than benefit or help the people. So it's been misconstrued in many ways over and over and over versus how it was intended when the Haudenosaunee people created it a long time ago. But there's a resurgence in tribal government to go back to those traditional teachings, to go back to the Council of Elders. Sadly, our elders that we look upon today as we grow, as I grew up as a young man, well, we were taught to respect our elders. And it was those traditional elders long ago who knew our culture and tradition. And today, and even on my reservation, those elders who have hit that peak or that age are boarding school products, where in the boarding schools it was taught, forget your language, forget your culture, forget your tradition. So the elders who are elders today have no clue of some of their traditions. However, as young men and women, we're taught to go ask an elder about questions of a ceremony. So rather than an elder saying, I don't know, they say, I'll come back another time and I'll give you the answer. Of course, being young, the young young person who's asked the question is sad because that person will not give them an answer. Versus long ago, the elders did give the answer because that part is erased from the elders of today because of boarding school policies in the early 1900s. I've seen it and going through that on my reservation. And sadly, elders from another reservation tell me I have the right to correct the elders because they don't know that part of cultural teachings. But as but when you're grown up, learning the rules to respect the elders, it's harder because we may know the rules or they should know the rules, but they don't. So then you find the inner battle within yourself so that you can pass on that new or that knowledge to the next generation so that they know what's going on in a correct manner. It's always in a correct manner, but never in a harsh manner. And that's one of the things I've seen. And I've seen that in my travels across Indian country that our elders, our boarding school elders, and I saw that in Blackfeet. An elder, a young man came to him. He was a medicine man. Asked him a question, and he said, "I'm going to be honest with you. I grew up in a boarding school. I don't know that ceremony. I don't know how it was conducted. I want to learn those songs. I want to teach the right way. but go see so and so. They know more than me. And to hear an elder say that, I felt sad, but I also commended him and told him, I said, that was a good answer to tell the next generation. But it's not lost. You too can go over there and sit and listen and ask those same questions because people are going to be coming to you for those same questions too. And he did. Sadly, he crossed over, but he did make an impact, and that was good.
So what do you see, I mean, going forward as far as, um, in these times of prophecies being fulfilled and restoration? Um, are there hopes and visions that you have? Um,
I see our people coming together. The one thing that I've seen and I noticed being a consultant for 25 years or more is that we have learned well from the invaders, divide and conquer. And jealousy is a part of that divide and conquer. But I've also seen that if we work together as tribal nations, we can become stronger and we can do many things to help our people. And that is what I see our tribal nations coming together. And with fall coming, many of the tribal nations on Turtle Island will be coming together to discuss water, natural resources, our people, everything that we have to do and utilize. And that's when we come together as one. But if we were to come together as a large group of people, we can make a huge impact. But we have to get rid of that divide and conquer or the green monster. And we can't allow that to enter our thought processes. But only remember that we have to work together for the good of our people. That's what we always must remember.
so how is the water situation now? I mean, um, it's looking pretty serious, isn't it, with the Colorado River?
The drought situation is pretty dire according to climate change, mostly in the Midwest. I mean, not Midwest, but Western United States. The headwaters here in Colorado, where the Colorado River starts, is still flowing strong, and a lot of the river is strong and clean. However, as you travel west, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, the drought has really taken its toll. And by the time it hits California, and we've seen pictures of Lake Mead, Hoover Dam, where now they are turning off the electricity, salvaging the water. It is going to only get worse. And we have to learn to adapt in order to survive. I also see a big influx of those people from the West Coast moving to the Midwest United States where the water is plentiful.
I'm going to ask if we have, I believe you know Janet Gray. I think she's with us. And I was going to ask if Janet had any questions or comments that she wanted to share. I'm not sure she's
Yeah, I'm here.
hi, Janet.
Hi. It's kind of My name is Janet. I think, Kenny, you met me via phone a while back.
Probably, yeah, sound familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, my name is Janet, and I'll do a formal introduction. Um, I'm of a Haudenosaunee nation by my mom. It's the Bear Clan, and the reservation that my family came down from is part of Canada and part of so-called Canada and so-called US. Ganawake would be the reservation and Akwesasne would be the reservation. So those, at one time, those two reservations were all connected. There was no differentiation. So anyway, my father is of the European persuasion. My mother was in a boarding school, kidnapping, and along with my other aunts and uncles. As a result, I grew up in foster care. Maybe saw my mom 2 or 3 times for short periods when I was of legal age. And let's see, one of my brothers was with me in foster care. The rest of my family, I couldn't tell you where they are, but I know some of their names. I've met a couple of cousins along the way, but you talked about how the colonial empire has twisted our minds into jealousy and all those bad things. In Mohawk, we would say Ganigun Raksa. That's the bad mind. And so the few cousins I've happened to been able to meet, because of that, we parted ways. So I've been standing alone for most of my life. My real brother, Matthew, died at 36 years of age from hardcore alcoholism. And when I say hardcore, he was a beautiful, benevolent soul. And the world did not accept, society did not accept him, no matter how benevolent and how he had an extremely high IQ. So I've seen what, what this society, it's all about from a very young age. And so I left foster care when I was 16, and my life got pretty hard after that. I thought it was bad in foster care, but and it was very ambivalent in foster care too. So, but anyway, that's just a brief thing. I'm an artist, and I'm studying the Mohawk language currently, and I'm retired at this point. So let's see. I did want to ask you, Kenny, when you talked about there's a real physical hoop, I didn't catch the whole thing. Did you say that it's been to all the reservations in so-called Canada, or has it been to most of the reservations on both sides of the imaginary border?
It's been on both sides of the imaginary border. It's been up on different reserves in Canada, the healing hoop or the mending hoop of which Don Coas runs, of fight and combat alcoholism and drugs. In fact, there's a book that's out, and I did have a few words to his book to help heal our people, and it's been pretty successful. It's fashioned similar to the 12 steps of alcoholism, but in a Native American setting or teachings.
Hmm.
The Wellbriety movement.
Right.
What's the name of the book?
Well, variety something. I think if you look up
I
well
think I have a
variety,
copy.
yeah, good.
Um,
Don Cois, Coyis, I believe.
one of the books is Meditations with
Hello,
Did we lose you?
Lisa, are you
Hello?
there? I think
I'm
we
here.
lost.
Did we lose her?
I'm back.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there she
Oh.
is. She went.
Internet.
She went incognito.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
lost internet for a moment. Well, Janet, let me ask you what mending the hoop means to you. I mean, I guess I see it in terms of, you know, the Lakotas as well, and you know, the hoop that was broken at Wounded Knee at the time of the massacre, and you know, so we had some involvement some years ago with the late Gary Rowland, you know, trying to bring the Seven Council fires back, and you know, and working for the restoration of original government. And you know, it's interesting, Kenny and I were speaking the other day, and we were talking about, you know, I mean, there's a lot of talk um about the restoration of matrilineal government, and you know, Kenny's understanding is that that's not always been true for all of the nations, original nations of Turtle Island. But you know, within the larger perspective, um, I guess there's, you know, in a sense, the hope that that the original nations would that the authority of the original nations be restored, you know, to restore balance, since it seems that those who've come as guests have really messed things up.
Hmm. That's a very good question, and I'm not sure if I have the complete answer. But listening to you, Lisa, kind of gives me some insight. Um, so I guess with my little mouse eyes, mending the hoop would mean to me, in the beginning when I first encountered the hoop being broken, I understood it on a personal level, a very personal, very deep and personal level. And so I saw my own hoop, you know, my own life being affected. And I guess I looked at it also in the broader sense, which I always have, since I was very, very little, that, you know, the environment is broken. But then as I started getting older and was drawn into the Native world, Native perspective, I wouldn't say perspective, I'll say current, the Native current. My eyes started to see things different, even more so differently than what I was taught in the Catholic schools, as far as spirituality and life and the relational, that life is relational more so than what I could have imagined in terms of I knew life was relational, but I never saw, and I didn't see hope. And I think, let me jump ahead. I think, you know, the Native perspective, for me, as I see it, gives hope to the world if only people would listen. And I remember talking to Stuart Mayu on a platform, his platform one time, and I was like, well, how long does it take for the non-native people to learn? Like, this is 500 plus years now. And he said that evolution evolution takes a long time. He said 500 years is nothing. And so then that gave me an even bigger perspective on things, you know, after I thought about it. So Mending the Hoop, I started on my personal journey years ago, even before I fell to the wayside with drugs and alcohol, mostly alcohol. I always believed in something greater than myself. But so I was fortunate to find my way into the Native world with the good-minded people and the 12 steps. And that showed me how to reckon with myself in relation to people around me, as well as the world, you know. And so on a personal level, I guess that's what it would mean to me. But then when we get into the level of sociology, or a social level, I should say, that's a little more confusing for me, because when I was brought into the reservation of Kwasasni, there was a lot of trouble going on. This is back in the early 80s. And the big thing was that one of the biggest divisions was those people that had enrollment versus those who were not enrolled. And the ones who were not enrolled were traditional, and the ones who weren't. And I never knew about that. And so for me, I still carry a lot of guilt. I don't know if it's guilt. I don't know if maybe it's shame, but I was enrolled when I was younger. And so although I don't use it unless I have to go across the border, I've been divided because of it from my own people. And I feel that if we could get past those issues, then people that are working in these tribal or band governments can help to bring the native current, you know, make it mend the hoop, like more so. But if evolution takes decades and decades and upon decades, then I would certainly hope that, you know, this is what I hope for, because we don't have land like we used to. We don't have the ability to migrate or to hunt, all these different things like we used to. And in order to get Mother Earth back to, you know, a better place in all sentient life, that call to consciousness, you know, of what you take from the earth, you must give back. It's going to take many, you know, I guess, I hate to say it, but I guess hundreds of years. And so for me, the thing that I have learned is that I have to learn to love people, even if I don't agree with them, even if I don't like them. And it's not that I would want to do anything wrong. I wasn't brought up to do that. I was only taught to be if someone punches me, I could either walk away or punch them back, you know. But with that being said, you know, that's where a lot of my confusion still lies, because I just think that yes, there are people who are not of the good mind, and there are people who are of the good mind, whether they carry that tribal ID or not. And I could be wrong, because I put myself outside the reservation life long time ago, partially not by choice. It was due to politics, and the fighting gets so bad that people are endangered, you know. And so I don't even know where I'm at with this answer, but I guess I'll shut up at this point.
All right. Thank you. Kenny, let's
Yes.
turn back to, I mean, success that you've had in assisting in Hawaii with some environmental challenges. Can you speak to that? I mean, successes that you've seen as people stand up?
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate to work with my tribe and to have my tribe send me to various training sessions when I came back from college. The key was to try to learn as much as possible. I start and helped create a natural resource division for my tribe. But at the time, we had the best water lawyer in the United States, and he was the late Sam Maines. And in that water law, it's called the Winters Doctrine, which still is upheld by the Supreme Court, reaffirmed many, many times by the Supreme Court. And basically, what the Winters Doctrine is the first one here gets the water first, meaning that our native people were here caretaking the land, and we have first right to that water over the government, over cities, over farmers, but and utilize it for our people. So one thing I always tell our younger youth is to learn as much as you can, learn the federal laws in order to help our people, learn our Indian laws, or learn our treaty laws. Because when one of the interesting things was when I was in Hawaii, I met with the lawyers who were fighting for the Kapunas, who are the grandparents who stood up at Mauna Kea and were charged. Well, it was interesting. They were talking about law, general law. They called it Western law, saying that, well, the law that we practice is Western law. And I'm looking at the lawyers and I said, Western law? Western law, that's Indochina, that's the West. We're in the East. And then I explained to them Indian law or federal laws that supersede state law and some of the ins and outs with the federal laws and loopholes. And in the very beginning, they were trying to knock me down, thinking that I didn't know anything about state law, which I had an idea of state law, but they didn't know treaty law or federal law and right of ways and property laws. So I had to educate. After they grilled me, the Hawaiians were a little upset. I told them, no, it's okay. And then I went right after the lawyers. By the time I was done, they were giving me a flash drive so I have a better understanding of the laws and what Hawaii had gone through. But it was interesting because by the time I was done, they were ready to have me go to the law school in Honolulu and teach federal law and Indian law because that is the laws that they don't teach our native lawyers. They teach them conventional law, never treaty law or Indian law or archaeological law and the protection of sacred religious sites. So from time to time, I may end up going to the Native American Rights Fund and doing a little refresher course in regards to archaeological laws and the protection of our sacred places. And that's always been welcoming to them because that only makes them a lot better as lawyers. But one of the interesting things is that what our Native people gone through in the 70s with the civil rights and fighting for rights at that time, especially with the American Indian movement, the Hawaiian people are going through that now. What, 40 years later? So all the lessons that we have learned utilizing federal laws come in handy now because I've learned those federal laws and those mistakes and lessons that we can utilize in order to help the Hawaiian people with the water, with the land, fighting for their land, fighting for the protection of the sacred places. And I testified at the state capitol, and of it was a day-long hearing, and of that day-long hearing, I was the only one who spoke in specifically to the intent of the law. And I had the committee people agreeing with every word I was saying. After the meeting was over, the chairwoman, Miley Samarika, chewing up her name, she's a Hawaiian, says, "How long are you here?" And I told her I'm here on a one-way ticket. And she said, "Oh, we're going to be working closely together." She says, "You're very knowledgeable in the federal laws, and that's what we need." So I encourage our listeners, if there's someone out there who's really good at talking, but also pretty smart at learning the laws, we need to do that and utilize those laws. Um, Many times, federal agencies ask me, "Are you a lawyer?" And I tell them, "No, I just know the laws. I practice the laws. I learn the laws, learn the loopholes." And they say, "You should become a lawyer." But I can't see myself sitting in a four-sided room all day and all reading. I would rather, my office is the great outdoors. That's my office. And I enjoy being outdoors and helping our people. And I love it when we utilize those words, whether they're $50 words, throwing it back at the people who are in charge and beating them with their own words. That's the best feeling to ever have. And we need to have more Native scholars, both men and women, to do that, but also to expand their learning abilities in the treaty law and Indian law, because those are two separate animals, very much very different than conventional law that is taught in law school. And that's what we're at. So this next time when I go back, one of the things is when people have land in Hawaii, they lease that land for $1. What they forget is when they get ready to leave that parcel of land, that land reverts back to the Hawaiian people or the Hawaiian kingdom and cannot be sold. But it's always been sold, and that's wrong. The Hawaiian Affairs is similar to the BIA here in the United States, and millions of dollars has been funneled to that organization, which is supposed to be intended for the use of the Hawaiian people. And just like BIA here in the early years, uh, the misuse of federal funds, it's happening there in Hawaii. So oftentimes when you hear a Hawaiian referring to the state of Hawaii as a fake state, I've learned that through research in 1959, Hawaii was going through the ratification process of becoming a state. Well, the United States government gave them millions and millions of dollars to run the state. And none of the people at the time had government 101 or any clue to how to run a state or government. So they said, go hire your cousin. He's pretty smart. Or go hire so and so. So what happens is you have nepotism, and then you have illegal activities, and that's how the corruption started. So when I was there in 2019, prior to COVID, I saw the corruption from the governor all the way down to the milkman. I have a milkman, so it'd be a dog catcher. And so all it took was one person to notify the feds, hey, this is not right. Federal laws are being broken. And soon thereafter, the feds, rather than kick back in their pushy, cushy chairs, they had to work because somebody knew that corruption was happening. And then what happened was they started working, they started looking into different things. The chief of HPD was arrested. His wife was arrested. Honolulu Police Department commanders were arrested, and all were charged with corruption charges, and now are sitting in the federal prison in Arizona. But this last time when I went back 6 months ago, it was good to know that the federal grand jury was now looking at the state government, Governor Ige, who is currently the governor of the state of Hawaii, and also looking at the state for corruption as well. So when I left Hawaii and I told them I would be back, I told the Hawaiian people that it's going to be a domino effect, and that's what's happening. Is one part of the puzzle is going to fall, and then many pieces of the puzzle will start falling, and that's what's happening today in Hawaii.
Janet, did you you have your hand raised?
Yeah. I got a lot of questions, but I was gonna ask a question about Hawaii, but trying to figure out what to do here. So the last thing you said, Kenny, is that things are falling into place for the Hawaiian people. I didn't catch the whole gist of what you were saying.
Well, things are coming together. Corruption is being discovered, but it's a long process in order to correct the situation. It's going to take quite a few years. And then in the meantime, I'm telling the Hawaiians to go get trained in how to run a government. To get the training in running a government, then they'll be able to utilize those monies to help their people.
Ah.
It goes back to getting trained.
Okay, so that would mean that the tribal governments can help the people if they
Yes,
get the right.
if you get the right people in the tribal governments or the Hawaiian Kingdom or any government, if any government is honest and is there working for the people, they could do so much for the people, for the betterment of the people.
Okay. So with that being said, the people are standing up for the land back movement, and I had an elder correct me and said it's not about land back, it's about land return. And I was really grateful that she corrected me, because it really is the native indigenous people's homeland. So like return sounds like a better word. But with that being said, do you think that there's any hope that the people will get any more land returned, or the ability to raise up more traditional communities like they have at the Kanyankehaga territory in way upstate New York?
I think it's important to educate those who are non-natives who have land which are closely adjacent to reserves or reservations of how the land was taken. From what I'm watching and seeing, I'm watching non-native people returning the lands back that they was in their families long ago, whether through guilt or what happened in history, but returning that land back to tribal nations. And that's where education comes in to play to educate those people. This is how our land ended up in your jurisdiction. And it would be nice or only fair that you return it back, because we can take care of our lands or consolidate our lands into a solid place on an Indian reservation or reserve. So it goes back to educating the non-natives on how those lands were taken or stolen long ago.
Hmm.
I think that's, part of why I know myself, I reached out to the Kanyenke Longhouse and to Stuart Mayo and the Life Givers Nation, was the hope of creating oases, where the red road is followed in the restoration, and that the lands are returned. Or understanding was that it be best to to work with traditionals, with originals, and it's few and far between, here in what is known as New Segovia, the town where grandmother Carrie Dan and Mary Dan lived, of the Western Shoshone Defense Project. The old ways are, and the elders are, very much gone,
Right.
so. But this was, I guess it was also Ute territory here, wasn't it?
Yeah,
They say,
Paiutes were in that area.
yeah. But everyone is so far away. I mean, Ian Zabardi's down in Las Vegas and others. So, finding the right people, to give land to in order to, have the healing unfold is a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Finding the right people to tend to the land is hard.
Yeah.
That's why I think part of the mending of the hoop would be, I mentioned this to a fellow native one time, that now would be a good time to have more Zoom healing circles like they did with the 12-step. It doesn't have to be done like that specifically, but within that same matter, because in the circle, everyone gets a chance. And I think that would be one good way to help to facilitate the healing.
Sadly, there's a lot of healing that must be done with our native people. you're talking about intergenerational trauma too, as well, which carries over from 1492.
Yes.
So the biggest message that I could carry to the young people would be education, Kenny?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
because somewhere down the road, with all my knowledge there behind me to learn all the things that I know, uh, I can walk the lands of Western United States and find burial sites, vision quest sites, sacred trails, sacred places, but there's nobody there following my footsteps. And sadly, our medicine people are much more at an older age, so they can't get out there anymore to do those things. And that's what makes it hard.
Hmm. So we need people to keep finding these places and fighting to keep them free from the rest of the encroachment, so to speak.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yep.
how are you bringing that forward then in your community, Kenny? I mean, are you? I mean, are there youth that you're bringing up?
No, there's nobody there because everybody's too busy with video games, computers. Nobody there who's really interested. But not only with my tribe, but with a lot of tribes. That's one of the every tribe is going through right now is who's carrying on those teachings of protecting our sacred places. So what I'm doing is I'm writing a book minus the locations of such areas, but to give people a chance to say, oh, I didn't know we had those things. Maybe somebody, it may spark an interest, somebody, and they would learn archaeology, anthropology, and protect those sacred places.
So how can listeners help and get involved?
Well, they need to get involved with their cultural people who are traditional, who have that knowledge, to write down that knowledge so that it's not lost forever. Many of the elders, those who do know those traditional places, are leaving at a rapid rate. That teaching us and lessons are leaving us for good. So it's important to document it, video record it, oral stories, so that it's always there forever.
And then I guess to study the not just archaeology and anthropology, but also like environmental and religious law to protect, to try and to do the best to protect these areas.
Right.
Okay.
So everything goes back to education again.
Yeah. That's what I'm seeing.
And we have to, because I remember giving a talk at the AAA's, which is the American Anthropological, and I did a reburial of an 8,000-year-old man whose DNA happens to be Ute. That the Ute people have been in the mountains of Colorado well over 8,129 years, plus or minus 129 BC. So to give you an idea of modern Ute or early Ute, 8,000 years ago, their pyramids in Egypt were not even built yet. Yet native people were walking the mountains of Colorado 8,000 years ago, before early civilization even cropped up in the Middle East.
Did you
So
say
it's
80 years?
8,000.
Oh, 8,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I believe that in White Sands, New Mexico, footprints were discovered there 200,000 years old, I believe. Either 200,000 years old or 20,000 years old. I can't remember the exact number. But our native people have been living on this continent for a long, long time, which means that many of our creation stories of how we were here long ago are factual and not myth or legends.
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. That's a lot of knowledge that's been either lost or buried.
Yeah, so going back to the AAAs in New Orleans, it was the very first time that Native people were given the chance. The Native archaeologists were given a chance to speak at the AAAs. So when I was there ahead of time, and I was eating peanuts at the bar, drinking a Coke, and this gentleman asked me if I was there to give a lecture. I told him yes. So I never been to the AAAs, never heard of it. So I asked him, so well, who comes to these meetings? He says, you see that old man right there walking? I said, yeah. He says, that's Professor Litke. And I'm looking at him and I'm laughing. I said, you mean that old guy's still alive? He said, no, 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 that's the great grandson of Professor Litke. Litke's great grandfather was the one who discovered Lucy in Africa long
Oh,
ago.
yeah. Yeah.
So it
Wow.
was world famous anthropologists, archaeologists, museum people from all over the world who were given lectures there at that in New Orleans.
I imagine that the AAA is part of the National Academy of Art and Sciences.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty heavy.
Yeah. So I gave a lecture. People were archaeologists were given another lecture, same time as my lecture. Why it was important, so I left it to them. But I went over to support people who are in the scientific community who have double PhDs, double or triple master's degrees, maybe a few bachelors. You're going to be nervous. Of course, our native people.
Mm.
Think you're breaking up, Kenny.
Yeah. I think we lost him.
Are you there, Kenny?
Very well versed at the English language. So, how about, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Do you hear me now? Let's see, one,
Yes.
two. So there was a professor from the Smithsonian, and he was a racist guy. And because the Native people have always said bones of contention were the bones of our ancestors. Well, he said, contrary to popular belief, the Native bones belong to the scientific community and not to the Native community. Of course, we disagreed, and he was being racist. Said a few other things, and I'm sitting there, and I was sitting with my friend who was on the Indian Commission from Iowa, and she was rather outspoken. So I told her, I said, say something. And she said, no, I don't know anything about this field. I don't want to get chewed out. That guy's smart. So they were doing a critique, and of course the BIA archaeologists gave a good critique of our native speakers because they weren't very good at English. Of course, they weren't good at speaking to a large audience. So they were nervous. And he said, any more comments? And I was waiting for somebody to say something, but nobody didn't want to make a comment. Finally, I did. I raised my hand. It went right after the guy from the Smithsonian. I told him, contrary to popular belief, just because he's got a well command of the English language to use $50 words at some understand he's retiring. And I commended him on his service, but I also told him because he was going to retire and go into the paleontological field, which is the study of dinosaurs. I told him, I'm glad you're going to go there because you're studying ancient, very ancient subjects, dinosaurs, millions of years old. You and your ideas and your philosophy are about as dated as the dinosaurs. And I'm glad you're leaving because we don't have to put up with those dated ideas because the people who are here want to do the right thing and work with the native people to tell the proper history of the native people, and that the bones of contention and sacred items should come back to native tribes as it's our ancestors' belongings. So I commend everybody who's here to do the right thing and to listen to the native archaeologists. And so that was the end of that session. So I went down, stood at the bar, and everybody come down, and they couldn't believe I told the Smithsonian guy in a diplomatic manner, told him off. But the native people also said the same thing. And I told them, I said, you guys need to practice your speech. You got to have more confidence talking to the people. Goes back to education again. And you cannot be afraid just because a person has a PhD, 2 PhDs or 3, or bachelor degrees or masters, that you're equally as smart as them. And you could out-talk anybody if you need to, or if you have to. Just build that confidence up. And many have. And some of my friends are still doing what they do best, teaching and protecting our sacred items today.
So what would you like to see? What are your hopes going forward, Kenny?
What I would like to see is our native people becoming more involved. And when our native people, the downfall that we have as native people, we start off with a good-hearted intention in preserving and protecting our culture and customs, helping our people. And then for some goofy reason, that green monster comes up and jealousy comes over and takes place, because then we become territorial. We need to stop that. We need to work together. There's nothing in I, there's we, and that our people is Lanama, means all of us. We're in this boat together, all of us. And that's what we must always remember. And that's what I would like to see.
Hi, hi. Janet, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking too, about the people not being afraid, to stand up, to people that have all these doctorates and all this and that. And yes, they're knowledgeable, but, their knowledge is also protected by institution, um, which basically is formulated through classism and secularism and all that. And that's something that I learned, as I was growing up too, being that I was able to go to I've had some higher education, um, but yeah, I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Kenny. It's really been, an honor to be here and, to listen to Kenny. I will do my best to carry your message, Kenny, wherever I go, to the younger people today, and even to the elders or people my age, or maybe in their 40s or 50s, and just to pass the message on.
Yeah, it's important. We have to educate the next generation.
Yeah, and I want to also say, thank you, because, being here has been educational for me, an eye opener and encouraging. Um, you know, yeah. So, I have to go to a powwow tomorrow, and, this lady asked me to go, and she needs some help. I guess the people, are going there's a tribe over that way. It's some kind of a school that has some land that belongs to them. And, I don't know how to say the name of the tribe correctly, so I don't want to say it. And so I was just thinking, she asked me to come and help her, and I'm not sure what she means by that, but I'd probably be handing out literature or something. And so in that process, I will carry your message about, unity and education. And again, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Chief, is there anything more that you'd like to say before you do the closing?
No, it's been a great honor. I hope that the listeners, those who listen, get something out of the words I spoke, because it's a universal teaching, not only for the youth people, but for all our Native people, regardless of where we come from in the four directions. We're united as one. And we should always remain united as one. That's the important lesson I can say or give.
Thank you. Wopida.
Oh,
So would you be so kind as to close the circle then?
sure. Yeah, I want to do that. Yeah. Creator, hear the words that were spoken. Hear the prayers of our people. Hear the words of our ancestors, those who have passed on the teachings to us. Let us learn from our ancestors those lessons that they have given us, whether it's through oral tradition or those that are written correctly. Let us carry those teachings to the next generation to pass on those teachings, but also to pass those teachings on in a good way to our people, that everything will be good for our people, regardless of what tribal nation we come from, whether it's here on Turtle Island or to our brothers and sisters in Canada, the First Nations people, that we are people and children of Mother Earth, and that these lessons also endure to those who inhabit Mother Earth all around Mother Earth in the four directions. We say these words in a good way. Oh,
Hi.
Hi.
Want to thank everyone for joining us for the Mending the Hoop Council. And again, thank you to Chief Kenny Frost and Janet Gray for joining us. And I hope you will both join us again, and
yeah,
that you have a safe journey as you're traveling. And likewise you, Janet. And again, Wopita and Skin Koa.
It's gonna go. And yes, I would definitely come back on invitation. Safe journey, Kenny.
yes, thank you.
Thank you, Doksha, everyone.
Doksha.
Okay.